In June, I went to intern at IIT Bombay at the Aerospace Department under Professor Hemendra Arya. The professor tasked my partner and I with making a gesture-controlled plane. We spent the first day brainstorming. My partner worked on the gesture control while I worked on building the plane. I did some research on building techniques and used some inspiration from well-known hobbyists. I also made my own designs using ratios mentioned in certain model aviation books. On day 2, we focused on sourcing all the materials needed to build the project. We bought sheets of Depron and EPP foam for the plane. We bought a servo motor, brushless motor, ESC, an Arduino Nano and some wires. My partner started with the basic code and I started with cutting out the foam. When cutting the foam, we ran into our first issue. There was some thick foam which could not be cut. We made our first design of a hot wire cutter using 2 AA batteries, some wood, and a nichrome wire, but unfortunately it had 2 less power. So we ended up learning how to use the DC power supply and ended up using crocodile clips to attach them to the ends of the wire. We cranked up the amps to 3 to ensure a smooth cut and enough power. And as you can see, it cut very smoothly through the thick 10mm Depron foam. In days 4 to 8, we ended up building a lot of the plane and the gesture control module. I started molding the foam and making the fuselage, wings, and other components. I employed a plethora of different techniques and used it to create the wings, the vertical stabilizer, and the horizontal stabilizer. We also went to the tinkerer's lab to cut out the motor mount. For the radio communication system, the people at the miniature aerial vehicles lab were very helpful in lending us a controller. Throughout days 8 to 14, we worked tirelessly on finishing the model and finishing the gesture control. We ran into a huge issue with the gesture control module as the transmitter wasn't connecting to the receiver. This is a hypothetical demonstration of how we would have wanted the gesture control to work. Here's a weight test of the plane. The plane weighed around 550 grams with the battery. We also did a thrust test for the plane. Here is our first test flight of the plane.
Flies really bad, dude.
So the plane crashed and was flying really badly. But what was the issue? Upon reviewing the video closely, I noticed that the plane was flying tail heavy, and the professor agreed with me on this. In this diagram, the red line represents the center of gravity of the plane, and here are the 3 cases as to what can happen. You cannot fly a plane when it is tail heavy. I was confused as I had checked the center of gravity before flight and wondered as to what could have happened. When I looked at the wreckage of the plane, I understood what had happened. Along the fuselage of the plane, I had added perpendicular spacers to provide structural stability to the plane. What had happened was that the battery tore through one of the spacers upon takeoff and was stuck at the back of the plane. This made the plane tail heavy. Here's a side view to better understand what went wrong. We rebuilt the plane and this time we added an FPV camera as well. FPV stands for first person view, and through the goggles we could have a live pilot's view of the plane.